Hi, everybody. So what what I wanted you to do, what I wanted to talk about today, was taking your analysis that I asked you to do, where you make a judgment, right? And then you get some facts to support that judgment. Everybody's there. Everybody's chosen an article, I hope. Everybody has made some kind of a judgment about that article, like we made about the pictures last class. This article is a bunch of hogwash. This article is outstanding. The host of this article needs to get his head examined, or whatever it is. Yes? Yes? Okay. And then you have some reasons to support that, right? I hope. If not, okay, dodgy. If not, email. Yeah? Get in touch with me so we can get you caught up. Yes? Definitely. Um, please, please, please ask questions. There might even be some time after class if we do this fast enough. Um, 3, 2, 1. What I'd like to do next is talk about taking the work that you've done so far and then building that into a thesis. Taking the work that you've done so far and building it into a thesis, and it would probably behoove you all to write this down if you're not taking notes already, because this is kind of how we're going to be attacking papers for the rest of the course. This they say, I say structure, they say, I say structure that I'm talking about today is how we're going to be attacking your writing for the rest of the course. So what is a they say, I say thesis? What is a they say, I say thesis? It is an argumentative statement. It's an argumentative statement that begins by establishing a context, and I'll talk about what that is in a minute. It begins by establishing a context and then follows through by adding something to that context. I'll explain what that means in just a minute. The idea is that whatever subject you're talking about, let's say you're talking about the BuzzFeed video, other people have seen that video and are having a conversation about it. That's the context. That's the context. It's the ongoing conversation about whatever you are writing about. You are joining that conversation. If you're in any like forums, or if you've ever been on a chat room, something like that, something where lots of people can sort of chime in at the same time, it's always really annoying, at least to me, when somebody chimes in without first waiting to hear what the other people in the group are talking about. It feels like, or like if you're in a group of friends and somebody just barges in and starts talking about their own thing before they listen and make sure that the other people in the group are done saying what they want to say. Does that make sense? You've all felt that, right? Where it sort of just yanks the conversation off in another direction. Okay, you don't want to do that in your writing. You don't want to do that in your writing. And the way to do that, the way to make the people in that sort of imaginary group of friends feel heard, is guess what they're thinking. Because you don't get to sort of like walk up and, well, again, you can do this through research if you want to. The way to do this, if you want to construct a they say, you can certainly do some research. But ultimately, you're going to have to sort of take a kind of a shot in the dark and guess what other people are thinking first. Then you're going to jump in, and I'll give you an example in just a minute. Then you're going to jump in and add your 2 cents to the conversation. You probably hear people doing this all the time. They just haven't called it they say, I say. For example, if you've ever seen a television commercial like for Tide laundry detergent, right? It might go, I'll get $1 when I post this on YouTube, I can monetize it. Everyone's heard about Tide, right? Everyone knows Tide laundry detergent and the great cleaning power of Tide. But have you heard about new Tide with bleach alternative? Not only does it give you whiter whites, but it also doesn't damage the environment. Try new Tide with bleach alternative. Yes? Okay, that's they say, I say. We know what you're thinking. We've spent $10 billion. We all know that you know what Tide is and what it does. You're in our club. You're in our group. You're a Tide person. But, hey, guess what? We've got something new and even better that we think you're going to be interested in, and then they add that to it. Does that make sense? And that's what, again, in the thesis of a paper, once you start recognizing this, once you recognize this pattern, it pops up everywhere. In my wife's, in a doctoral dissertation, like if you're going for your PhD, like the last huge paper that you're going to write in your college career, if you want to go for a PhD, it begins with all the literature on this subject suggests that thing A is true. However, I have taken the research in a new direction, and I'd like to say that I think thing A sub 1 or B is actually true. See what I mean? A lot of the research on this hasn't accounted for this little thing that I've discovered. And so I'd like to take all that thinking and put it in a slightly new direction, or ask you to look at it in a different way, or undercut it, or do a rebuttal to it, or something like that. Does that make sense? Figure out what people are already saying about it, or guess what they're already saying about it, and it's going to be kind of both. And then you come in and add. And what that does, it does a couple of things. It gives you, as a writer, it gives you credibility, because it shows the reader that you're doing your homework. You haven't just pulled this opinion out of thin air. You've thought carefully about what other people are saying first, and then decided to add. The other thing that it does is, if you've ever been in like an argument with somebody, and like you're yelling your opinion and they're yelling their opinion, in the argument, then you run away from the person, and then you go, oh geez, I miss Tony or Steve or Susan or Fred or whoever it was, and then you go back, but you might have the same argument again later because you weren't listening, right? Whereas if you say, oh, I'm feeling this way, you go, oh, when you say that, I hear you say that you're feeling this way. Oh, thanks, you really listened to my point of view. How do you feel? I feel this way. Well, when you say that, now, and then you understand each other, and then the problem goes away. You've all had, yes, I think both kinds of arguments get in a paper. You have to have one of those like not so shouty arguments. It can't be so shouty, because if you, again, how do you lose? Let's say I'm reading this paper. If this paper starts shouting at me and I don't like it, what happens? And you've lost the argument. You've lost the argument. So that's why in writing, it's even more important, because you can't back up your opinion with like the force of your presence or the volume of your voice. It's just paper or a screen. Click. Everyone is just one click away from forgetting what you have to say. Yeah? Extra important to get your they say in there. Okay, so you want the reader to feel heard. You want to sound like you've done your homework. Let's do an example. How about that? Yeah? Let's do an example. BuzzFeed video. Did somebody have a takeaway, like a strong, like we did with the picture? You put up the picture of the guy in the suit, right? Did we do the guy in the suit in here? Did we do the other one? Put a picture of the guy in the suit, somebody goes, that guy looks like a home wrecker. Home wrecker, right? And you go, okay, well, why, right? You back it up. So, did somebody have a, that guy looks like a home wrecker opinion about the BuzzFeed video? Like a strong takeaway from it. It was really funny. It was really dumb. I believe that guy 100%, or 50%, or 75%, or however much.
He seemed like he was just mirroring his points off of things that he read on the web, rather than investigating or like being curious about like expanding on any of them.
Okay, okay. So he had this kind of like echo.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was like he just watched it just because he was forced to.
Yeah.
Not really his own opinion.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Like he had a deadline with BuzzFeed.
Yeah, that's what
Okay, okay. Okay, so it was quickly constructed maybe? Yeah? This kind of like thrown together, here's the big arguments about the thing, in and out, and he's gone. Yeah? Okay. If I were writing, this seems pretty negative to me, is that right? Yeah? Okay, so this, again, if this was the big idea, the big judgment that both of you, is that right, we're left with, this would be your I say. This would be your I say. You can think of it like a scale. If you're curious about, if you have a lot of opinions about the thing, whatever it is you're looking at, you have a lot of opinions about it, and you're not sure which one is the they say and which one is the I say and what other thing. Think about the scale being like heavy, yeah? And whichever is the heaviest, was this believable, was it not believable? Some of it seemed believable, but then there was this huge preponderance of just nonsense, right? That's probably your I say, yeah? The heavier of the two. Does that make sense? Okay, so since this is resoundingly negative, yeah, you might want to think about the counter argument, which would be that there's something enjoyable or something good about it, right? Then you can hook those people in. If you're getting them primed to like drop a bomb on this thing, right? You want to get people feeling a little warm and comfy, like maybe there was something about it that was good too, in case they liked it, and then they won't wind up feeling dumb for having liked it, yeah? Was there anything enjoyable about it or good or?
I like the points he gave.
Okay. Can you say a bit more about that? Why?
I always thought that the shadows were really contradicting with each other.
Okay. So, I don't know how to spell intriguing. I'm guessing. I apologize. Is it G-U-I? Whatever it is. You know that that's supposed to say intriguing, okay? Here, look. Interesting. Intriguing face, okay? That's smarmy. That didn't come off intriguing at all. I don't like that. Good. Creepy face. That's not what I tried to draw. It's supposed to say intriguing. So initially, right, there was some like, whoa, hey, what's going on there? But then when you look at them a little more closely, you can tell they're just like sort of echo, these empty, like hollow echo things, yeah?
I got two different things. Like I like the points, but I did like how he presented himself. Like.
Okay, and that again. Is everyone clear on this one? You might have watched this video and thought, ooh, some of these points are really, they sort of catch your interest. But then when you dig in a little bit, it's sort of hollow. The thing was thrown together very quickly. There's not a lot of depth underneath, right? You really liked the presentation? What did you said you really liked something?
I like the points he gave. I didn't like how he presented it.
Okay. We'll leave that up there. Right, so like if it were a bullet pointed list, you'd be like, the things on this list are really interesting. But what did you not like about the presentation?
Like she said, it was just like an echo, like he was just spitting out stuff he read.
Okay, good, okay. That feels to me like, again, he's listing the points, but then there's not like support underneath it. Is it a support issue or is it the way he's saying it?
It's like lost in translation, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm quite getting it. Sounds like something about the way he's repeating it makes it sound like he doesn't really care. Yeah? Is that his tone of voice or his body language or?
The lack of depth.
Okay, good. Is that the same thing? Okay, good. Okay. So if you look at this, if this was just a list, you'd be like, hey, great list, tell me more about that. But then there's no more about that, it's just a list. That's a paper. That's your paper. The they say is, right, you might watch this video, get really interested in it, and go, hey, this is great. But then you can say, but skip it, because all that stuff you thought was really great isn't going to be in the video. It just like stops there, yeah? Is that, they say, I say, yeah? That's a thesis. To write this paper, what you'd then do is imagine that your they say was carrying a suitcase and your I say was carrying a suitcase, and then in the body of the paper, you'd unpack them. So you'd write a paragraph or two about how the points were really interesting, and then a paragraph or two or three or four about how ultimately those points were hollow when it came time to develop them thoroughly. Yes? Something like that? And that's how you start turning this into an outline. To prove this, to prove that the points are interesting, what would I have to cite from the video? Those are bullet points. To prove that, what would I have to cite from the video? Those are bullet points. And that's how you start turning this into an outline, which is what I'm asking you to do for next time.